It was just after sunrise when the ranger boat hit something solid, half buried in the reeds along Caddo Lake's edge. They thought it was driftwood, but when they pulled it up, it was a military-grade case, wrapped in algae and steel wire, sealed tight like someone really didn't want it opened. Inside was paperwork, old, yellowed, stamped with the Los Angeles Dodgers logo. And across the top sheet, in permanent marker, 2 words that didn't make sense together. Will Smith. Now here's the strange part. The name wasn't attached to a player contract. It was next to a string of coordinates. Coordinates that led right back here, to this lake. And when you trace those coordinates, you don't find a baseball field, or a clubhouse, or even dry land. You find deep water, and something else resting beneath it. Soft pause. Then, tone tightens, conspiratorial. What surfaced that morning shouldn't have existed. And the Dodgers? They've never once acknowledged it. So what exactly was the Will Smith file? And why did it end up at the bottom of a Texas lake? Soft pause. Caddo Lake doesn't look like most lakes in Texas. It's dark, swampy, a maze of cypress knees and Spanish moss that hangs low, like the place itself is trying to hide something. Locals call it haunted. Historians call it historic, the only natural lake in the entire state, spread between Texas and Louisiana. For decades, it's been the subject of rumors, lights over the water, unmarked boats at night, and sounds echoing through the trees that no one's been able to record twice. But none of those stories ever involved a Major League Baseball team. That changed in early 2022, when a fisherman named Roy Caldwell reported finding that sealed case wedged between 2 submerged logs near the state park boundary. He turned it in to authorities, thinking it might be evidence from a cold case. What they found inside, though, wasn't police evidence. It was paperwork, corporate, organized, official-looking, bearing the stamp of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, for anyone hearing that name, Will Smith, your mind probably jumps to one of 2 people, the actor or the Dodgers' starting catcher. But the signature inside that file didn't match either of them. It belonged to someone else entirely, someone who, until this surfaced, didn't seem to exist in any public database. So the question becomes, who was this Will Smith? And what business did the Dodgers have at Caddo Lake, nearly 1,400 miles from Los Angeles? The case was old, but not ancient, industrial grade, the kind used to transport sensitive equipment or weapons. Its hinges were eaten with rust, but the locks were new. That's what caught their attention first. Someone had sealed it not long before it was found. Inside, the documents were vacuum-packed in transparent plastic, each one labeled with a date and a short code. LAINT 0452. Every sheet had the Dodgers logo watermark faintly visible beneath the surface, like it had come straight off an internal printer. The first few pages were what you'd expect. Payroll lists, scouting reports, staff memos. But midway through, the pattern broke. There was a single-page transfer report titled Asset Relocation, W. Smith, Containment Procedure, Stage 3. No player stats, no trade numbers, just coordinates, a long string of them, and an unreadable signature under a red stamp marked Completed. When the authorities checked the coordinates out of curiosity, they lined up almost perfectly with the small cove where the case was recovered. That's when the questions started. Because as far as the Dodgers' official history goes, there's no record of any asset relocation, no personnel by that name listed under internal operations, and certainly no reason for confidential paperwork to end up in a swamp 1,400 miles from their stadium. But there was something else. One last page. A faded photograph attached by a rusted staple. The picture showed what looked like a warehouse interior, industrial lights, metal flooring, a man standing in the background with his face blurred out. On the back, Handwritten in ink so faded it could barely be seen were the words, "He's still there." Now this is where things start to blur between the strange and the explainable. After the file was turned in, the Texas Department of Parks and Wildlife logged it as unclaimed property. That means it technically wasn't under criminal investigation. But within a week, federal representatives, no agency label, no insignia, arrived and took custody of it. The official report listed them only as consultants. Before it was removed, though, a ranger made digital scans of the documents for their internal archive. And that's where online sleuths got involved. The code printed on each sheet, LAINT 0452, actually matches the Dodgers' internal indexing system for player evaluation files. But here's the strange thing. That number sequence falls under a project ID that was deactivated in 2020. The same year the team's logistics contractor, a man named William D. Smith, went missing while driving cross-country from Los Angeles to Baton Rouge. On paper, that Will Smith was a data analyst who handled shipping manifests and off-site equipment storage. Not a player, not a coach. But his disappearance was quietly reported to local authorities, and then just as quietly withdrawn 2 weeks later by the organization. When journalists later asked the Dodgers about the case, the team's spokesperson called it a misunderstanding involving a third-party vendor and refused to elaborate. Here's what makes it hard to dismiss as coincidence. The coordinates inside the file? They're time-stamped just 3 days after William Smith's last known phone signal, which, according to cell tower data, pinged less than 5 miles from Caddo Lake. So either this was one of the strangest coincidences in team history, or someone moved a lot more than baseball equipment that week. When you trace the timeline back, something weird shows up. Between 2019 and 2021, satellite records show that the area surrounding Caddo Lake, specifically a fenced section near Mill Pond Road, went through a series of restricted environmental surveys. On paper, these were listed as federal clean water assessments, but locals remember something else entirely. During that same period, residents reported blacked-out trucks driving in and out of the reserve after midnight. No logos, no plates, just convoys that stopped for weeks at a time. A few anglers even told local papers they were warned to stay away from the northern inlets because of subsurface work, whatever that meant. Around then, several wildlife cameras in the area started showing bright, linear flashes beneath the water. Not lightning, but something mechanical. The footage didn't last long. Most clips were corrupted after the first few seconds. What's interesting is that one of the file's metadata tags, recovered from the ranger's scan, contains a project reference, ARI-3, Temporary Relocation Unit. The letters could mean anything, but if you line up the timing, the trucks, and the relocation term inside that file, it starts painting an unsettling picture. Maybe this wasn't about a player, or even a man. Maybe asset relocation meant something entirely different. Equipment, prototypes, data. Something the Dodgers front office didn't officially own but still moved. And if you're wondering why a baseball organization would be involved in something like that, so are the locals. Because Caddo Lake has a long memory. Just a few miles from where the case was found sits the remains of the old Longhorn Army ammunition plant, a Cold War-era testing site that once stored classified materials and, later, environmental waste. It's been inactive for decades, at least on paper. And when you cross-reference the lake coordinates from the file with declassified EPA maps, they fall exactly within that restricted zone. As the story began to spread online, a few journalists tried to trace the file's paper trail. That's when some unusual things started surfacing. In a 2021 local segment aired by KTBS Shreveport, park officials briefly mentioned what they called a federal storage reassessment operation near Caddo's eastern border. The clip aired once, then disappeared from the station's online archives. But viewers recorded it. And in the broadcast, You can clearly hear the reporter say that equipment labeled with private contractor tags was being removed from a decommissioned facility just outside the lake reserve, the same month the case was discovered. Around that time, the Environmental Protection Agency's Region 6 office quietly updated their hazard report on the Longhorn Army ammunition plant site. Buried in the fine print was a single phrase: off-site data retrieval and relocation completed. Independent investigators, mostly Reddit researchers and document archivists, compared the formatting of the scanned DODGER file to legitimate MLB internal paperwork. They confirmed the headers, layout, and watermark were a match. But what stood out was the signature. In one of the scans, faintly visible under magnification, was an identification code: OPS/WS-19. That's the same coding structure the Dodgers used for operational subcontractors during their 2019 logistics expansion, the year William D. Smith was hired. So maybe this wasn't just an internet mystery after all. Maybe pieces of it were already sitting in plain sight, buried inside old news broadcasts, government documents, and a handful of unmarked pages that shouldn't have left Los Angeles. A few months after hearing about the case, I drove out to Caddo myself. It's one thing to read about that place online. It's another to stand there. The air is heavy, thick with moisture and silence. The trees look ancient, like they've seen things people weren't supposed to. I found the same cove marked in the ranger's notes. Narrow, barely wide enough for a small boat. The water was dark, almost black, and still enough to see my own reflection. Except, it didn't look like mine. It was distorted, stretched by the ripples. A man sitting on the dock nearby told me he remembered when the Rangers pulled something out of the water. He didn't look at me when he said it, just stared at the lake and muttered, "They came back that night. Took something else, too." I tried asking what he meant, but he wouldn't say another word. As I left, I noticed a small metal warning sign half submerged in the reeds. It wasn't state property. It had a private contractor's emblem on it, and a date scratched over in black paint. The wind picked up just then, and I swear, the entire lake seemed to move with it, as if it was breathing. It took months of digging, news archives, internal directories, even abandoned payroll systems, but eventually, one detail made everything click. Remember that signature on the file? The one stamped beneath Asset Relocation, W. Smith? When the Ranger's digital scan was enhanced, the full signature was finally legible. It wasn't William D. Smith. It was William S. Henders. Henders wasn't a Dodgers employee. He was a logistics contractor for a defense technology firm called DODGER Systems, a company with no official connection to Major League Baseball, but with offices registered under the same Los Angeles address as the team's legal division. That's why the watermark matched. It wasn't the baseball Dodgers file, it was the other Dodgers. And William S. Henders had vanished the same week the fisherman found that case. When you pull his public records, the last GPS ping from his government-issued truck stops exactly at those coordinates, the same ones written inside the file. But there's something else. Satellite imaging from that morning shows a faint, circular depression forming in the water, about 12 feet wide, like something had been lifted or lowered beneath the surface. Whatever they were moving, it wasn't paper. It was something heavier. And if that temporary relocation unit note means what it sounds like, then the Will Smith file wasn't about a person at all. It was about a containment protocol, something sealed, transported, and hidden, right there in Caddo Lake. In the weeks after uncovering the DODGER Systems link, most of the original online files vanished. The archived pages, the contractor lists, even the public satellite records, all gone. It's as if someone swept the digital trail clean. I tried reaching the family of William Henders, but the number listed under his name now redirects to an inactive line owned by a private security network, the kind used by subcontractors who handle restricted transport. And then there's the strangest part. 3 separate witnesses who live along the lake swear that a few nights after that file surfaced online, 2 unmarked airboats patrolled the area at 3 a.m. No lights, no sound, just that low hum across the water. Officially, there's no Will Smith Dodgers file. There's no record of Dodger systems ever operating in Texas. There's no missing materials list filed under Henders' name. But there is one new development. A single digital footprint left behind on a weathered cloud backup from 2016. A line of text under a folder labeled Containment. It reads, Project Will, active until further notice. And if that doesn't send a chill down your spine, think about this. Whatever was sealed beneath that lake, someone made sure it stayed there. Not to protect us from it, but to protect it from us. So, what exactly was inside that file? Was it a classified containment protocol that someone buried under Caddo Lake? Or was the Will Smith Dodgers file nothing more than a cover name, a piece of misdirection that we were never meant to notice? Either way, something real moved through that lake, and someone worked hard to erase every trace of it. And here's the thing. Every time a case gets wiped this clean, there's usually a reason. Now I'm curious. If the name Will Smith wasn't referring to the actor, or even a person at all, what do you think it meant? Drop your theory below, because next week, we're looking into another file that was never supposed to exist. And it starts with a lake just like this one, only deeper.